Welcome, Wargamers, to the ruins of the past scattered across the mortal realms, because today we are talking about Age of Sigmar lore that was sent to me by the fine folks over at Cubicle 7. Now, if you don't know, they are the company that makes the official Games Workshop or Warhammer tabletop RPGs. So they have stuff for 40k, fantasy battles, and of course, Age of Sigmar. The Age of Sigmar game is called Soulbound. If you want to look it up, I plan to talk about it quite a bit here on the channel more. And for Soulbound, the most recent release to start hitting the stores here is super fun and full of interesting locations throughout the realms. The book is literally called Ruins of the Past. Now, there are already a ton of great resources for this game, but this book is unique in how it adds a series of locations with individual issues as a way of allowing a light detour for parties. So this book is full of, I believe it's 9 locations that all have their own story. They're somewhat limited and focused, meaning there's like a very specific vision for these places. And they're all intended to be awesome for one-off adventures or demos of the game, or just something that you can like expand upon these locations and extend them into your campaign if you want them to be a bigger part. But in this series, we're going to review the Ruins of the Past locations and discover new and unique corners of the mortal realms. And I wanted to start off with my personal favorite. Like, if all of these were equal places and I was being deployed to one of them as a Stormcast, we'll say, where would I want to go? And to that end, I wanted to go to the Platinum Spire. So what is it? Well, deep in the realm of metal, Chamon, sits a tightly bound chain of floating islands that are all constantly orbiting each other. In a way that if you looked at it from far away, these island chains would almost look like a lava lamp, right? Constant motions up, down, left, right, moving in 3 dimensions, almost like a 3-dimensional chain of islands, just kind of rotating around one another. At the center of this chain of islands is a larger one, presumably creating the orbit that everything else is trapped in. On that larger center island is a massive tower called the Platinum Tower. This site was originally erected in the Age of Myth to act as a Stormvault. Now, for those of you who weren't playing Age of Sigmar when it was released in its 2nd edition, here's the short version. The god of humans, Sigmar, went out and explored or conquered huge parts of the setting in the Age of Myth, trying to make it safe for humanity to develop. Along the way, he encountered and acquired a fair amount of artifacts of incredible power. These could be artifacts from the long-forgotten world that was, to brand new god-beast creatures that are so infused with might that even like the tooth of this beast can like shatter any wall kind of a thing. Anything that would challenge a god or be enough to destabilize a population, meaning the darkest magics, the most devastating weapons or magical items, Sigmar rounded all of them up and sealed them away in a series of safes. We call them Stormvaults. And these are spread all across the realms. It's like he would go to a region, collect everything important from that region, and lock it away and then move to the next. So there's Stormvaults all over the place. And not only are they protected by the vaults themselves, and they're generally hard to get into locations like geographically, but also inside each vault is a machine called the penumbral engine to keep them hidden. Now, imagine a radio tower that broadcasts stupid. Or I guess confusion would be a better word than stupid. That is, anyone who comes into the radius of effect of the penumbral engine, or within signal range of this tower, gets confused. They forget what they came there for. You cannot see the vault, it's shrouded in illusions, and so everyone just moves on. So you can have a whole Chaos army and they're told, hey, there's important artifacts to the west. They start moving west, and when they get near the vault, either they'll see a fictitious thing that divides them and makes them go or a different direction, diverts the army, or they'll walk right past it and literally not perceive that it's there, or stop at its door and go, why were we here again? I don't know, let's go home, and then just turn around and walk away without even realizing they're doing it. In fact, there is one Flesh Eater Court's army who they went mad just going in circles trying to find the vault that they were supposed to be protecting. They all swore to protect the Stormvault, but they can't find the dang thing, so they went mad just running around in circles trying to. Now that was essentially Sigmar's plan to keep the most dangerous things in the realm that he's found away from the common people. lock them up, and put them in a prison that was literally made to be forgotten. However, the pivotal event for Age of Sigmar in the 2nd edition from a storyline perspective was that the god of undeath, Nagash, tried to do a spell that would raise all the dead from the realms at once, sort of like a grand necromancy spell. It backfired, but a wave of death magic still roiled out of Shyish, and it was this wave of arcane energy that basically washed over the entire setting. It started overloading and destroying the penumbral engines keeping the Stormvaults hidden. So the setting has this huge destabilizing event causing undead to rise all over the place. It just wasn't as many as Nagash wanted, but while that's happening, you have a literal arms race amongst every single tribe, war clan, army, faction. Everyone wants the toys that were so overpowered that they had to be locked away. Right? Imagine today, in real life, if ready-to-fire nuclear payloads just magically appeared all over the world. Right? Bigger nations with, say, superior intel and response times, they'll get a lot of them, but there will always be some that get away because locals can just go snatch it faster. And that means it can land in the hands of some very dangerous and angry people. Now, Sigmar knew this, so he started sending out his Stormcast Eternal Chambers to go and secure the Stormvaults. And I'll explain that in the next bit about the Platinum Spire, but essentially after that big death spell, the necroquake, this place, the Platinum Spire, was revealed. And we're also told in this little lore bit that this particular Stormvault is known for its repository of magical lore regarding death and undeath magics. So essentially, dark forbidden arts kind of a thing. And once it was revealed, the first faction to reach it was actually the Forces of Chaos, specifically an army that was mixed of Slaves to Darkness units, as we would know them, and Disciples of Tzeentch. So we have thousands of dark wizards, there's Zangor, there's Screamer patrols in the area, hordes of dudes fighting, and they're all trying to get into this vault. They found the floating island chain, they found some way to navigate it, because you have to hop from island to island to make it to the center of the thing, where the actual tower is. And they've completely secured and surrounded it, but they have not been able to actually break in the door. Because for this particular Stormvault, in addition to the penumbral engine, are a host of magical locks, seals, and traps meant to further deter visitors. Now, as things stand the moment that your players in your binding arrive, the Chaos Army has the place in a firm grasp. And, in charge of that army, are 3 magical beasts known as Sphinxes working on the locks. These are intelligent, magic-wielding creatures, and each of them is stationed at a different section of the vault working on the defenses in that particular area. The 3 Sphinxes we're introduced to are Marukus, the Cultivator, Ravala, the Architect, and Tilvanus, the Bibliarch. Which all sound like very imposing names. I love them quite a bit. But the thing is, for these 3 characters, it is difficult to make any kind of meaningful progress. And that's simply because assaulting them at all times, just outside the doors that they have sealed, is an army of Stormcast Eternals, specifically of the Hallowed Knights. Now, we don't get an idea as to exactly how long the battle has been raging. I would imagine it's been going on since the necroquake, or at least shortly after. But it seems like things have been going back and forth for a long time, right? The Chaos Forces have secured the tower, but they can't get in. But right outside them, trying to knock them off the tower, are the Stormcast Eternals. They've tried tunneling in, alternate routes, diving from the sky, just a lot of different forms of assault. And while they make little bits of headway, they're repulsed with a counterattack in no time. Now, when your characters arrive to this event, the Stormcast here have recently gotten some much-needed reinforcements in the form of the Grundstock Fleet. This is a mercenary group of Kharadron overlords, sky dwarves, who basically are bringing in artillery to see if that can shake up the stalemate that everybody seems to be stuck in. Because every time there's an assault, there's an immediate counter-assault, right? Neither side has what it takes to break through the contact with the enemy. Everyone's just kind of grinding each other down to the nub. But it's important to remember that all of those things are happening outside of the spire itself, right? The Platinum Spire. If your party wants to make it into the Stormvault, you need to find a way through this madness, right? There is a constant fight between Stormcast and Chaos. It is complete with artillery, sky attacks, defenses, magical weapons, priests of the Hallowed Knights, and it's kind of described as this constant, gritty, close quarters combat. My thought is almost like World War I, where it's just constant charges, counter charges, not a lot of ground being gained, not necessarily trench warfare, but not too dissimilar, but that kind of thing. So that kind of acts as the first layer of this onion that is the Platinum Spire, but let's assume you make it through there, right? Because the adventure is, of course, within the Stormvault. Maybe your party is escorted up to the gate by a Stormcast Eternal Spearhead, or dropped in from those Caradhran ships that we talked about. There's just a lot of different ways your party can choose to get into this thing. But whether through bargaining, heroism, or subterfuge, once you get into the vault, the next section is the labyrinth. This is a large, somewhat circular maze that makes up a huge amount of the complex. So like I said, the creatures trying to break in here, it's really the final lock that they can't get past. They've made it a little bit of ways into it, so they've gotten through the front door, and they found the maze, and they're struggling with it. And the reason they do is because it is designed with illusionary magics in mind. So you walk into the maze, and as you're walking, you may see walls moving, opening different paths, closing the stuff behind you. A room might appear and then collapse, but look identical to another room, so you can't tell if it's new, or if it moved, or if you just walked in a circle. Like, it's that kind of stuff. And at the center of this labyrinth is the final entrance to the Stormvault, along with its last line of defense. Presumably, this is where the third of the Chaos Lords will be, trying to work on the locks. Right around that gate, it is surrounded by ancient automata guardians that patrol as they have done for centuries, constantly searching for any kinds of intruders. So far, if there's like a random Stormcast or even a Zangor that somehow gets coughed up out of this maze, maybe they were just sent in, as an exploration party to map it out and they got lost, the maze spits them out. It's the automata who are going to wipe out those intruders before they have a chance to play with that last lock. This will bring your characters into the main atrium, I suppose. And honestly, it's a Stormvault, right? We're going to jump straight to the what's in the box kind of moment, right? What are we here fighting for? And while I will talk about that, I want to point out that for you people doing the GM aspect of this thing, there are 11 separate points of interest within all the chaos that we just described for you to play around with. There are tons of ways to get your party to and into the Platinum Spire that all make sense narratively, so let imaginations run wild. Regardless of that, you'll still have to contend with things like arcane puzzles, trap rooms, everything, and then they attack the actual 3 sphinxes. You can choose to repair the penumbral engine. You can create backdoors for the Stormcast or Chaos to get the upper hand. And my point in saying that is a lot of the things you'd hit up here once you're in the vault really depend on your binding and their motivations. Right? If you're champions of order, you can roll up, help the Stormcast, get into the vault, take what you want, and then on your way out, restart the penumbral engine, and you just wake up later on with a cool artifact, not remembering what happened. That could be an outcome. It could also be that you come there to act as a mercenary force to assist the forces of chaos. Maybe someone needs these Stormcast gone. Again, it's just going to matter depending on your particular setup. My point in this section is simply to point out there's a lot of ways into the place, and there's a lot of narrative threads that you can pull once you're in there to kind of problem solve. Now I want to end this video like I end all of them by simply asking, why is this cool? Like, for me personally, I love the openness of the Platinum Spire, which is why I chose it for my first one. Some of these locations in this book are really oriented towards one kind of a binding or another. For example, there's one where you can walk inside of the Maw path of an Ogre Maw tribes. That one is much more designed for destruction bindings in mind, because anyone else will just get killed and eaten on sight. But orcs might be like, hey buddy, we might be able to at least get ignored by them, preferably. If not, they can help us. But this particular story appeals, in my mind, to all factions. There is no faction in Age of Sigmar that would not love to slip in and get the goods from a Stormvault. This is the Heist of the Ages, okay? You could be a group of Gloomspite Gits sneaking in while everyone's distracted by the battle and just take what you want. Helping the Stormcast or hurting them is only a side option for you. The fact that there's a battle raging outside that is essentially in a stalemate is wonderful to me, right? Lots of games do that, and so what's nice is players can see the consequences of stuff. So if your binding wanted to, this mission could be a 3-session campaign, have a battle going on outside, let your players tip the scales, see some consequences, and then move into the vault. Or it could be a one-shot adventure. Heroes, I'm glad you're here. We were about to make the final push that sees us take the spire, and you just jump in with that Stormcast Eternal, army on patrol. Get right up there real fast, and then the spire can be something like a 3 to 5 room dungeon. My point is, there's a lot of ways to reward players for this quest, whether it's through decision making and expanding what's going on, or just by going straight to the heart of the rewards and stuff. The book provides several ideas for rewards for players, whether it's like arcane tomes or experience, that kind of stuff. But a theme I'll keep bringing, back to these one-off settings is that they're perfect for allowing your players to achieve their short or long-term goals without long-term consequences. Achieving your short and long-term goals are kind of one of the main ways you gain experience in Soulbound. And so if you have a long-term goal of, say, leading an army against chaos, right? That's a pretty lofty one for a singular person to have. This is a place where you, as the GM, can put that player in charge of the Stormcast Eternal flanking force. That sees them making it into the vault and achieves their goal in the process, but from that point on, they don't have to be a continual leader of a Stormcast army. So you can bring it back to the binding, I suppose. So as we review these places and the stories erupting around them, be on the lookout for ways to add extra rewards. By rewards, I mean achieving goals, actual rewards like coin, experience, artifacts, that kind of stuff. Because that's really what it is, a ton of prompts for you as a GM to engage your players on a lot of different levels. And last but not least, as I've said before, the Rim of Metal is just my favorite. It is the coolest idea. I love the alchemy themes that it has. And I overall just think it makes for a very compelling location. Just the idea of a 3-dimensional swirling island chain. How do you get an army there? Right? I mean, like the Stormcast can lightning arc in, but like that Chaos army had to walk there. It sounds impressive. It sounds intimidating. It sounds like a great place to put a prison that no one should know about. And that's why I like it. The freedom to tip the scales of that outside battle, that ultimately, once you get inside the actual, Stormvault proper, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter who's winning outside. If you and your team are there to either lock the place up for good with the Penumbral engine, or just steal it so that it's no longer valuable, you do whatever you want. But friends, those are just my thoughts. I love the Platinum Spire as a location. I'm going to continue covering a few more of these. If you enjoy this kind of content and you want more Soulbound stuff, please let me know in the comments down below. I'm always a little unsure how interested people are into it. I really like Soulbound because I love the setting of Age of Sigmar more than the actual tabletop game. So this is a wonderful way for me to dive into the universe without having to put any models on the table. I'd love to hear your thoughts and what about Soulbound you'd like to learn. And I'll use that as content ideas for my future videos. So thank you so much for watching and listening, and I'll catch you next time. Happy wargaming, friends.